Landon is a professional surveyor that lives and works in Central California, Central Valley. Good Lord. He is licensed in California and Nevada. He's also a certified federal surveyor and a UAV pilot. He owns Redefined Horizons, a family-owned business focused on small private land development projects and real estate transactions in the Central California and Western Nevada. Enjoys hiking, landscape photography, and computer programming. And then also, if you guys haven't noticed lately, but Landon put together a podcast called Putting Your Business on the Map. And you can follow that on LinkedIn and YouTube and Spotify, he says, on both of those. I watch the ones on LinkedIn, but so give those a watch as well for anybody kind of on the business side. So Landon, this is something we just got rolling after 30 years of field to finish drafting. We just got it going last October in Diamondback. So it's a funny conversation. So I'm glad that we can help other people out getting this thing going. So, and I know we'll get Rob to chime him in a little bit on some of the stuff before he needs to run out, but good stuff. So I always appreciate your time and anybody who jumps on here, but glad to have you back on. It's been a while since you've been on, so I will turn it over to you, sir.
All right.
Welcome to Redefined Horizon.
Sorry. Okay. You know what? I was talking to Trent. I actually gave a talk on field to finish for the Oregon conference. And so I just had posted some excerpts of that on LinkedIn. And I didn't realize, I thought I had made that video public, but I didn't. So I've been hoarding content for a new Patreon page. So I put that link in the chat. So my partners have been bugging me for about 3 years to get a Patreon page up. And so the reason I finally did that is I actually hired a young lady that's going to help me kind of edit and put together all this content. So I'm hoping to get it out a little more regularly and have it be a little more professional. So anyways, to help pay for her, my partners were like, you got to get a Patreon page up. So I went ahead and did that. And there's a bunch of stuff on there, and I'm putting some more stuff up. So there's CST review questions. There's surveyor math stuff. There's going to be some LS test prep questions. So anyways, but I want to give you guys the direct link. So let me give you that. So if you have this link, you will be able to get to the video. So let me post that in the chat. So I'm not going to go through everything I went through in the video because I want you guys to be able to watch that. But I'm going to do an overview. And then what I thought we could do today is jump into Carlson. And I can actually show you a little bit about how you would set some of this stuff up. Because I did not do that in the conference video. So there's the link to the video. It's long. It's an hour and 15 minutes or so. And then I'm going to give you guys another link. So this isn't live yet either. That talks a little bit about how we set up our CAD system at RH for parallel work. So if you're interested, if you geek out on CAD stuff, you guys can check those out. Okay, so why did I do a talk on field to finish at the Oregon conference? Because they asked me to. That probably wasn't my first choice. But they asked me to do it, and I actually really enjoyed putting it together. And here's something that surprised me a little bit. But after I gave the talk at the Oregon conference, I didn't have a bunch, but I had several people reach out to me after and were like, hey, thanks so much. This is something that we've been wanting to do, and we just haven't done it. And, your talk gave us the inspiration to do it. And so that was fantastic. So here's what happened to me. I just happened to go to work at the right place after college. And I had no idea what a good survey company looked like and what a bad survey company looked like. It was like total dumb luck that I ended up at a halfway decent place. So I happened to go to work at a company that used field to finish. And they were a Trimble shop, and it was all set up, and it was super slick. And I just assumed that was how everybody did it. And so I was really surprised to find out, actually, no, that's not how everybody does it. And now how did I figure that out? Because I went to work at 4 or 5 other places that did not do it. And so one of the things I did was I got to bring field to finish to some different different jobs. And so now what's weird is I started my own company, and we use field to finish and we have it set up, but it's not a huge part of what we do here, only because we don't do a ton of topo. We're mostly a boundary land use planning shop. We don't do a ton of topo. And then some of the topo that we do, you know, a lot of that's being done now with, we're doing a ton of that with UAVs. So it's either photogrammetry or LiDAR. So we do a little bit of it, but I'm actually having to find opportunities to teach my new crews field to finish, because we just don't do as much. I mean, when I was growing up as a surveyor, we did a ton of ground topo. So I spent the first, I don't know, 5 years of my career, maybe 8 years of my career, like doing RTK topos and total station topos of levees in the San Joaquin Delta. Like, that job is gone, folks. Like, that's all done with UAVs now, and LiDAR. It's so anyways, we just don't do as much of it. But one of the things I talked about in the video for the conference is, you know, just because you're doing your raw data collection with a UAV or a mobile scanner or terrestrial scanner, you still should be doing field to finish in the office when you do what we call feature extraction. So whether you're doing it in the field as a party chief, or you're doing it in the office as a tech in something like virtual surveyor, you should still be using field to finish. So, okay, so I want to talk about a little bit about the 5 parts of the field to finish system. So this is what I go over in the talk, and then we can jump into Carlson survey for a little bit. That's what we use here, and I can just show you how some of that gets set up. And I'll tell you, I'm not an expert at Carlson survey. I'm getting old enough now that I have a lot of people working for me that are way better at the CAD stuff than I am. It's super depressing. But I tell people, you know, I've got a young lady. She's been working for me about 5 years. I think she's like 22. She can barely drink, barely old enough to drink. And like, I sit behind her when she's doing CAD work, and it blows my mind. Like, she's just second nature. I mean, she's so much faster than I am now, because she does it every day, 5 days a week, you know. And like, I still have CAD and I get in it, but I'm not in it every day. You know, I'm not in it every day, and I don't use it hours every day. So anyways, I'm beyond my prime is what I'm trying to tell you. But we'll open Carlson and we'll trip through a little bit. Okay, so the 5 parts, and if you're already using field to finish, bear with me, because I'd like to hear from you guys how you're using it and kind of what works good and what doesn't work good. But let me go through the 5 parts. So the first part is point number ranges. Okay, so standard point number ranges. So I don't know how many surveyors have those. I think most do. So, you know, at our shop, we do 0 to 99 is like our primary control. And then we have like 100 to 299 is secondary control. And then like 300 to 400 is our aerial targets. And then, you know, we jump up to like, so the way we do our boundary is the 1000 series number is the search point. And then if you subtract 1000, you get the found point number. So as an example, 1502 would be your search point. 502 would be the corresponding found monument. And we do the same thing with like our aerial targets. So like 1310 would be the stakeout. 310 would be the actual target. And so what I call that, and I talk about it in the videos, we call those point twins. So the numbers line up. So we call those point twins. And so we do that with all our boundary. So you can always match up the search point with the found point based on the point number, which is super helpful. And then we go, you know, I can't remember, we jump up to like the 10,000 range. So we do 10,000 range for conventional, like total station topo. And then we have like 50,000 ranges for GPS topo. And then we jump up to like points that are coming off a point cloud get their own range. So in like the 10,000 range for total station topo, we also assign so like from 10,000 to 19,999, like we split those ranges up by crews. So what that allows us to do is I can look at a point number in a CAD drawing and immediately know what type of point it is And if I'm familiar with the job, I know probably what crew set it. Okay, so I know, is it a control point? Was it a total station shot? Was it pulled off a point cloud? So if you do nothing else, that's pretty easy, right? It's pretty easy to get standard point number ranges. And sometimes we work with our point number range, and sometimes we work with our client's point number range. So it just depends, right? And so here's what I tell. So I'll tell you what I hear a lot of times from surveyors is they're like, my field crews won't do this. I have one response to that. Get new field crews. Like, I don't understand. Like, this is non-optional where you don't come to work for me and tell me that you're not going to do this. I'm sorry. Like, I'm your boss and this is the way we're going to do it. And like, I don't get it. I don't understand why licensed surveyors let their party chiefs run their company. It makes no sense to me. So, but I hear that a lot. Like, I can't get my field crews to do this. Like, yeah, this is non-optional part of my job. Like, it's like, you got to have a clean driving record to be a party chief. Like, you better be able to come here and learn how to do field finish. I just don't understand. So anyways, point number ranges is kind of the easy part. Now, depending on the software you use, so I'll tell you, I've set up field to finish in Trimble Business Center, and it's AutoCAD Civil 3D, LDD. For those that remember LDD, I did it in LDD, I did it in Civil 3D, and now we're using Carlson. But Civil 3D is super slick. You get your point number ranges set up, and it'll automatically sort those points into point groups. It's super simple. So that's kind of low-hanging fruit, standard point number ranges. Okay, the next part is what I would call setting up your feature code library. And so what that is you identify a list of codes that basically, and this kind of comes from the GIS world a little bit, but you're basically identifying the type of point based on a code. Okay, now I've worked at some companies that have used numeric codes, which just fries my brain. Some people love them though, but it's okay. I'm not telling you not to use them, but it's really hard for me. But so we try and use 3 or 4 letter codes here. So pavement is PAV, edge of water is EW, whatever. So we have a code list. And here's what your code list does for you. So for example, if you're running Civil 3D, and the same is true with Carlson, is once you set up your code list, that software, and Trimble Business Center will do this, that software will automatically sort your points, layer your points based on your code. And then you can also automatically place blocks based on your code. Okay, so it blows my mind the companies I bump into that like have a full-time person hand layering points and dropping blocks. So here's what I talk about a little bit in the conference video. If you are currently hand layering points, dropping blocks, or drawing line work, automation is going to eat you for breakfast. Like, you have to stop doing that. Unless you're 75 and you're going to retire in 2 years and you don't care. Like, if you want to be around for any length of time as a viable mapping company, you have got to get that fixed. Now, and I'll tell you what, this cracks me up. Like, everybody's freaking out about artificial intelligence, right? So I'll give you my 2 cents on that, which is, if that's about what it's worth. Like, I'm not worried about artificial intelligence. Like, I can't even get the voice recognition in my truck to say my partner's last name correctly. Like, not super worried about artificial intelligence taking over the world. And like, look, I've tried some of the tools, like, super not impressed. Like, I'm just not impressed with Chat GPT. It just is not doing it for me. What cracks me up is like, everybody's freaking out about AI, but like, we've had field to finish capability for 20 years. And like, a lot of surveyors still aren't using it. Right. So, you have to start using this, guys. You have to, because you're competing with a company like mine that's been, I've been using field to finish for 20 years. I can tell you right now, if you're not using field to finish and I'm using field to finish, there's no way you can compete with me head to head on a topo. You just can't. So I'll tell you, well, I'll talk about the next part, and then I got a story to tell you guys. And you guys know I don't ever have any stories, but so okay, so you've got your point ranges, your feature codes, then you got your automated line work. So your line work codes, and we'll look at how you can set those up. And Carlson calls them special codes. By the way, I don't know if it. So I was a AutoCAD Civil 3D junkie, and then Autodesk tried to blackmail me, and I switched to Carlson even though I didn't want to. And I love it. I mean, it is the best. Like, you can tell Civil 3D is made for engineers. Carlson is made for surveyors. Like, those guys are phenomenal. Like, you can tell the software's made for surveyors. You call those guys, like, they answer the phone. You talk to a human being in the United States of America. Look, I am not on their payroll. If you are thinking about making a switch, those guys are fantastic. We love them. And you're going to see when I show you how like, there is so much power in their field to finish. It's crazy. It's crazy what they do. So anyway, so your line work codes, what that allows you to do is automatically draw your lines. And what we do at my shop is we draw lines and curves, and then we separate that. So Carlson will let you create 2D lines, 2D polylines, and 3D polylines from the same set of points. And we do that. And what happens is the 3D lines go into the surface model. Those become break lines. And then the 2D line work gets cleaned up, trimmed and cleaned up, and used in what we call our planimetric drawings. Because you can't hatch 3D polylines into, you got to separate that, right? So we have our 3D line work that goes for our tin, and then we have our 2D line work that goes for our planimetrics. And Carlson does that all at the same time with their line work. So super, super slick. So line work is another part. I will tell you, you never get perfect line work out of the field. I think it's almost impossible to take down a topo unless it's really simple and not have some stuff that has to get cleaned up. I mean, I've been doing it for 20 years. Even when you double shoot some points and do some, you still end up with just some gaps and some overshoots, and you just have to clean it up. So that's not the point of line work. The point of line work is to give your draftsman a half a shot at getting the sidewalk drawn on the right spot, right? So if you don't use line work, you can imagine like opening up a drawing with 3,200 points, and like you've got a Google Earth screenshot, and then you got to try and figure that stuff out. That is super hard, especially if you haven't been doing it for a long time. If you're a relatively new drafter. So line work is never perfect, and that's not the expectation. So line work is the other part. And then let's see, there was so the other thing that, and Civil 3D and Carlson do this, is what I call point tables. So you can set up point tables. So like we have a table set up where you automatically drop in a table that grabs all the numbers in your primary control range, shows the point number, northing, easting, elevation, rounded to the correct precision with the description. That all goes in the table with the right fonts and the right justification. It's just like super quick. So you can also do the same thing if you want for like your found property corner monuments. We don't do a bunch of construction, but if you do construction, you can easily set up like an Aztec report in a point table. So super slick. And Civil 3D does the same thing. They have the same kind of functionality. So that's another thing you can do. And that's all based on, those things kind of build on each other, right? So your point tables are all based on your point number ranges and your feature codes. Okay, and then the last thing I talked about in the video was, there's other things you can do to automate. If you want to, work with a little bit of AutoLisp or, do a little bit of coding, you can also automate things. So one of the things that's on my list of stuff to do, and I haven't done it yet, is I want to just write a little Lisp routine that will go through, and everywhere we have a top of curb shot, I want one multi-leader that has that. So the code routine will go find the nearest flow line and lip of gutter shot. I feel like I'm missing one. Flow line and lip of gutter, and it'll create one multi-leader with those elevations at the top of curb point. Because right now we have to do that by hand. It's a pain in the butt. That's a super easy thing to automate if you know a little bit of coding. That can save a ton of time. So there's opportunities to do that kind of stuff. All right, so those are the 5 parts that I talk about in the video. And you don't have to do them all. You start one of the things I talk about in the video is, implementing field to finish it is a huge effort. I don't want you to underestimate that, especially, it was easy for us because we started it when we were 2 people. If you try and bring field to finish to a company with 10 crews and they've never used it, that's a huge undertaking. And I don't want anybody to underestimate that. What I would do in that situation is I would start with my favorite crew. You don't roll that out to maybe to 10 crews all at one time. And you are going to take a productivity hit for a while. It's going to slow them down until they learn it. So you don't maybe do that across the company. If you're whatever, HDR, CH2M Hill or somebody, you have 200, you're Sam and you have 500 survey crews, probably you don't roll that out across the company all at once. Okay, so I'll tell you a story that I think illustrates why this is important. So we were working on a job for a large civil engineering company, which we try not to do, but we got talked into it. And we had, I think it was 35 miles of corridor mapping to do. So this is rural roads, but we're shooting boundary and all the underground utilities, overhead utility poles, wires, all that kind of stuff. They had aerial LiDAR for the topo, so we weren't doing any topo, but all the utility stuff. So it was they had a mark and locate team we were working with. Well, they wanted performance by an impossible deadline. And so I had to tell them, like, we had a wet winter. This is last winter, the winter before this, and we had a wet winter, and we were, we weren't going to make the schedule they were going to make. So they said, hey, we're going to get you guys some help. Would you take help? We said, sure, yeah, we'd take help. So they had another company that was already set up as a sub. They said, hey, we're going to send these guys over to help you. And I said, okay. I said, that's great. I said, do they run field to finish? And the client says, oh yeah, no problem. Just send them your stuff. And I was like, are you sure they know how to run field to finish? And they said, oh yeah, no problem. Now here's why I was concerned about that. Because if that company couldn't run field to finish, I didn't want them. That was going to be unhelpful, not helpful. It was going to put us further behind schedule. So they sent these guys out, and these guys we really liked them. Like, they were super down to earth. They were good guys. They sent me 2 or 3 guys, maybe 4 guys, I can't remember. And they worked with us for, I don't know, a week or 2. And they did like 3 or 4 miles of this mapping for us out of 34. So they sent us the points, and I ran the line work. And it kind of looked like if you have a young son or daughter, like 3 or 4, you give them spaghetti, that's what the line work drawing looked like. It was all over the place. And so here's what we did for the first couple days. We attempted to go in there and clean the line work up. And it was so bad that I actually took a survey tech with me, and we went up for 2 days with a clipboard, and we hand sketched the utility paint on like some Google map printouts, Google Earth printouts. We took Sharpies, and I literally we walked every foot of that 4 miles and sketched the paint so that we could come back into the office and draw the line work, because their line work was no good. That's why line work is important, right? I mean, they had the points for me. Well, and the other thing was, they went out, we had like a lot of this, we only had like common electrical. Like, they weren't watching the descriptions when they switched between common electrical. So I had a bunch of miscoded points. This is underground. Like, this company spent tens of thousands, or I don't know, it could have been a couple $100,000 on a utility mark and locate. And then I'm going to get the comm line in the wrong spot because the crew coded the points wrong. You can't do that, right? So this is really important. So here's what I don't know, because I've never been at a company that I've never worked at a company that doesn't run field to finish. Like, what do you do if your crew isn't running field to finish? do you go site walk everything with a clipboard? Like, I don't understand how on a complicated project you get the line work drawn correctly. I don't know how you do that. And so this is really important. So there's the efficiency part of this, right? Which is, you know, I'm going to eat you for breakfast if I'm running this automation and you're not. That's one part. But the other part, there is a QA/QC part of this, right? And here's what I teach what we try and teach our party chiefs, because we have some young party chiefs. It's like, you are the eyes on the ground. The drafter is never going to see this, more than likely. Right now, we take photos and we do 360 videos, and we do some things to try and get the drafter all the information that we can. But 95% of the time, my drafter is never going to be on the ground. Right? Like, the party chief that's why the party chief has to do the line work, because they're the one on the ground seeing the line work. Right? So if you're not running field to finish, I just don't know. I don't know how you do that. Now, here's the other thing that we do. So I'll talk to this, and then I'll let you guys. You guys can ask questions or tell me I'm an idiot and don't know what I'm talking about or whatever. But now I totally forgot what I was going to tell you guys. Oh, we just hired a young guy. He's been working for us about 3 months. He came from the construction field. He was related to somebody else that worked for us. So we hired him. Super hard worker. Because I can't find young men that want to do hard work. It's really hard. So we found one. He's like 26 and he loves to work hard. So he doesn't know any CAD. So he's been learning to be a robin. And then, it's been raining here in Central California. It's been raining. And so on rain days, we've been making him sit down and learn CAD. And he hates it. He doesn't like it. So he was a construction worker. He likes being outside. So last week, I think, or the week before, he came into me. It was about 1 o'clock. It was a rain day. And he's like, "Hey, do you care if I bounce?" And I'm like, "You're leaving?" He's like, "Yeah, I got stuff to do at home." And I'm, all right, cool. So I let him bounce, right? Well, I knew I was leaving. He didn't want to be on the computer, right? So the next day or the day after, he come in and I sat him down. I said, "Hey, we got to talk for a minute." He's like, "Okay." I'm like, "Look," I said, "I know you don't like the CAD work." He said, "I understand." He said, "I'm gonna let you in on a little secret." He said, "I don't like billing. I don't like business development. I don't like doing my timesheet. Guess what? It's part of my job." So I told him, I said, "You need to understand, I don't have a job here for a guy that works in the field and can't do basic CAD work, period." I told him, "You have to learn this." He wants to be a surveyor. Like, he loves it. He's been here 3 months. He loves it. He's like, "I want to be a surveyor. This is the best thing that ever happened to me." I'm like, "That's great. That's fantastic. You have to know basic CAD work to be able to be a land surveyor here." Hang on, guys, because I kicked something and I just had my monitors go dark. Bear with me here.
Landon, while you're doing that, I was gonna have, since you have Carlson, I was gonna have Rob pull up in our office the Trimble side of stuff real quick.
Oh yeah, so yeah, are you guys doing your stuff in TBC?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So a
So
little
we
bit
like
a mixture.
Yeah, I
but
like that too. Yeah, TBC is good too.
So if he's got to run to Little League, so he'll get off a little early. But if you want to run through on the Trimble side real quick, and then we can look at the Carlson on the back end too. So
Yeah, no, like Rob, jump in there, take over.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good, Rip.
Okay, so this is in TBC because we are with the evil empire in Civil 3D, despite how many times we threatened to get away from it and try Carlson out. So this was a site we scanned, and I had scanned it because I'm a nerd and I was bored at 10 o'clock at night. But the next day we came through and surveyed it, and this is all the line work pulled out of TBC. So it operates very similarly to what you get from Carlson, what you get from Civil 3D. We did everything by hand for years, and then we had a field meeting every 2 weeks for what seemed like 6 months, basically trying to get everybody on the same page with their codes. And as Landon said, it starts with the codes. The codes are really the most important thing in the point ranges. Once you get them dialed in, you cannot give this to 10 crews and expect them to all turn around and start doing the work and making it look good. But what you do is you give it to 1 or 2 crews you feel you can trust to get good feedback from. And then over time, you develop, sometimes we've had to change a bunch of our codes. You know, we've had to modify a lot of things because as you start coding the line work with it, you realize that doesn't work anymore. We've called it this code for 10 years and suddenly it busts up the line work. And TBC is very finicky about the way you code things. I just last week found out that Civil 3D is even more finicky because the delimiter you use in TBC, which can be a space, doesn't work for Civil 3D. So I got Landon spaghetti noodles on a job like this, which I knew was, you know, worked great and looked great. And then suddenly we brought it into AutoCAD and it looked absolutely terrible. So it can be super picky. Like there's a busted line right there. And the reason we like doing it in Trimble, and the field guys hated it. And you guys know all field guys, they hate new things. They hate everything new that you make them change. They despise it. They will fight you. They will die on that hill. But now they love it. They love being able to go around and see in their collectors the line work that they drafted. You know, they're out there giving themselves little pats on the back when they're putting compound curves and then they look fantastic. They're like, hey, I did that right. They're starting to troubleshoot their stuff. They're becoming a better set of eyes on the ground and doing their own QA/QC, because every time someone comes in and, you know, gets a trash enclosure like this and say they've got points way over here and it's all wonky and out of square, they're immediately going, uh-oh, you know, the guys in the office are going to see that I screwed up. Like I need to go fix that. And, you know, we no longer have to resort to shaming them to doing a better job. Like now they see the line work and they go, wow, like that's not right. They delete the points, they go back, they reshoot it. So the Trimble side has been great just for the field guys in the field to see what they're doing. It's a bit of a pain to have to export from Trimble a 3D break line file and a 2D drawing line file, you know, at 0 elevations. That is a bit of a pain. So it's not ideal. So we're looking at possibly trying to do everything in Civil 3D, but again, that also requires another change in codes or a modification of some of the codes, and we try not to do too many of those. So as far as, you know, what we can do from TBC and Civil 3D, it's not quite as user friendly as I know Carlson seems to be, but on the field side, this has really been the ticket for us because the guys can see all this and pan around in 3D and they can see what they've got and they can see how it looks, and it's really easy to find a bust on their side, which before, you know, you asked how do we know that the line works right? You cross your fingers and you pray and you look at, you know, 800 photos of a 3,000 point site and hope that you've got it, you know, or 10-year-old Google Earth photos. So that's what we were resorting to until about a year ago. And we just said, it's too much. We're getting too many sites coming in. On the smaller sites, and I don't know if you see the same thing, but on the smaller sites, the payoff is a little bit less because you can go out and knock out a small site. It's probably quicker just to code everything where you can just connect the dots. But on the big sites, when we get a big Walmart site or a FedEx site, you do the line work, it maybe adds an hour or two for the extra codes in the field, and it saves 4, 5, 6 hours of a CAD tech sitting there trying to figure out, okay, what point connects to what next point. It's the bigger the site, the more payoff there is. So I will run to Little League. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Rob.
Hey guys.
Yeah, that was awesome. So so my partner likes to do the line work. My partner Brian likes to do the line work in TBC. And so here's what I would tell you. You don't necessarily have to have it be either or. So I think you should set your feature code library up for both your CAD software and your raw data processing software, because you want your guys to be able to see their line work in the data collector. So I do think that's important. And that can get a little finicky depending on the software combo that you're using. But I absolutely think you should have it workable in both places. So there are some trade-offs there. There isn't one better than the other. One thing I really like about doing the line work in your field processing software is you can actually clean up the error at the source, which is the point description. Whereas if you're doing it in CAD and you're just actually modifying the line work, the error is still there inherent in the point description unless you go in to manually edit it. Carlson does have something called Field to Finish Inspector, which allows you to go in and actually modify the points. But anyways, that's one advantage to doing it in the survey software. The other thing I wanted to tell you is, and I don't know, I know Trent's based in Nevada, so I can probably say this. I couldn't say this if I was talking to a CLSA chapter, but this is one of the advantages of being non-union. Is you can get your people a little bit of cross training. I think you should make your crews clean up their own line work. And I'll tell you why, because they will do a better job in the field if they have to clean up their own line work. If you got a CAD tech cleaning up their line work, they're like, whatever, the CAD tech will deal with it. Like, yeah, like even if you only occasionally torture them, like, whatever, twice a month, but you make them come in and clean up their own line work. Here's the other thing about having your crews run a feature code library and line work and clean up their own mistakes is that forces them to think about what is going to happen in the office with their data. And you just, I think, get a different level of quality when you've got a party chief. It's easy for an experienced party chief to just go out and do a site topo on autopilot. So having to run line work forces them to slow down a little bit and think about what is the deliverable to the client and what's going to happen with my data in the office. And I think that's healthy. Now, I know I've been picking on field crews a little bit here, so I will tell you the other thing that we try and do, and we could be better at this, but we also try and rotate all of our office techs out into the field. Now that doesn't happen once a week, but I've got one of my techs, she loves working in the office, and like about once every month or once every 2 months, I put a gun to her head and I'm like, you're going out today. Because we also want the CAD techs to learn what it's like to survey you can't get that shot because it's behind a building corner or it's under a tree, right? So that's one of the real advantages to being a non-union firm here in California. And so we try and capitalize that. So if you're not from California, guys, you may not know this, but in California, if you're a union firm, you don't get to cross train like that. So you don't get to run your field guys in the office, and you don't get to run your office people in the field. That's a big no-no with some very narrow exceptions. So anyways, before I'm going to just jump into Carlson for 5 minutes and just show you guys a little bit about how this gets set up. But before I do that, were there any questions or comments? Any struggles you guys have had running field to finish, or things that have worked well or that haven't worked well? Ryan asked the one question that I do not have an answer to.
Yeah,
So,
I just texted that to Rob really quick because he just walked out the door. But
yeah,
I know we had issues with it in the beginning, and he's on his text back to me, he just says, we struggle with that too on curves specifically. It makes for messy line work, which is why I started trying to get the CAD side set up. And then Nolan, which is another friend of ours, Nolan and I have it like 90%, just some bugs to work out. So they're kind of working on it on the back end. It's still the same issues. Yep.
Now let me explain that issue just so you guys understand, because I don't think there's a clean fix, and it has to do with the way your CAD software works. So you can really only support a circular arc in 2D. So basically, there isn't a way to run a 10 with a true circular arc, right? So here's what I would tell you, and this isn't, so what TBC does is it automatically approximates that arc, and what it does is it'll create 700 vertices on that arc. Okay, so here's one way around that, and I know this isn't elegant, guys, but what you do is when you shoot your curves, you take let's say you got a big curve, I don't know, whatever, it's 100-foot long curve, like a high, edge of a road or something. What you do is you break that into smaller curves. You make it like a compound curve, right? And you shoot it at the interval that you need to get a good 10. And then you don't make that a 10. It's actually a segmented polyline for your 3D line work. So you take the true arc for your planimetrics, but you need a segmented arc for your surface model. That's why, like, as far as I know, there is no way to get a true circular arc into your 10. It has to be approximated. And so the question is, are you consciously doing that in the field, or are you letting the software automatically interpolate that curve? And so when you see in the 10, you see a curve and it's got 800 vertices, that's what happened. It took that curve and approximated it to run the 10. So that was I think that was Ryan. That was great, Ryan.
Yep.
I've been beating my head on that for 10 years. And so if you have some other brilliant solution for that, let me know. But the best workaround I can come up with is you got to take that big curve and you got to shoot it as a compound curve so that you can get a decent 10 out of it without a bunch of vertices. I haven't read Joshua's comment yet. Let me just read that. McCreely's calculating points. Yeah, so he's just saying you can use field to finish as a sanity check, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so then once you have that DXF, then they know where to start the next day, right? Instead of painting a big 20-foot pink line on somebody's parking lot. Yeah, if they've got the line work in the data collector, they know what you could even send a different crew. If they take the same data collector file, they can pull up the line work, right? And see what was done and what wasn't done. I didn't even think about that. That's good. Yeah, that's a good comment, Joshua. So all right, let me see if I can share my screen real quick, guys, and I'll just show you a little bit about how this is done at Carlson. I always get messed up because I use like 4 different types of screen sharing software. Oh, there it is. All right, let me try this here. Okay, so I think, can you see that screen, Trent?
Yep. You got
okay, so
Carlson up.
All right, I think this is set up. It's our template drawing, so I think this is set up. So let's see. So it's under the survey menu. So this is what you actually use to run your field to finish, but I want to just show you how you set up your feature code library. So that's right here, edit field to finish codes. And it's going to ask you for your F2F folder. And I think I might be one too far down. All right. So we actually have two. We actually have a feature code library that we use just for spot codes to draw our spot elevations, because we had to hack that a little bit. So that's why there's 2, but this is our main. So another nice thing about feature code libraries, like let's say you have a client, like maybe it's a utility company that you do the same kind of work for all the time. You could have a feature code library just for the work that you do for that client that has like their kinds of codes, right? And then you can support more than one feature code library. All right, so let's just open this up and we'll look at it. By the way, I'm happy to send whatever we have in Carlson to whoever would like it, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Most surveyors are particular about their codes, like they are their North Arrow. So, but if you want our code library, we will send it. I have no problem sending it to you. Just let Trent know and we can send it.
Yeah, same for us on the Trimble side if somebody wants that. So
yeah, so this is how you set it up, right? So you got your code here, then the full name. The reason they put this full name in here is you could actually replace this code with the full name in the point description or label, because most of the time this doesn't do your client any good. They need to see something like that, right? If you got an engineer that's looking at a topo. So that's what the full name is for. Then you can set your symbol here, and you can also assign the line type. We always do it by layer. Okay, but you can come in here. So let's just look at one of these. Let's look at the storm drain code. So there is a ton of stuff in here. Okay, so you define your code here. You can set your full name. You can set your layer here. So we've got this going on. You can come in here and pick your layer. Okay, so this right here is where you can set, if you want, you can set up a separate layer for your 3D polylines. And we do that here, right? So we get 2 sets of line work from the same points. We get a 2D set of 2D line work, and we get a set of 3D line work. I think Rob said that's one of the things he's kind of having to export twice.
Yep.
So you can do that right here. You can also have it separate your point from like your block and your label. And I believe we do that too. We keep our points on a separate layer. You can set up your You can do just text, or you can have your description. It can be just text, or it can be a block, or it can be both. It'll let you can choose the way you want your attributes laid out. I don't use point groups in Carlson yet because I can't figure them out. Don't judge me. I really liked them in Civil 3D, but I can't figure out how they work in Carlson, so I need to spend some more time on that. Here's where you set your scale. And then down here, you can tell, what do you want? Do you want a 3D polyline? For this code, do you want a 3D polyline, 3D and 2D, only 2D, just a regular line, or only points? This is a manhole code. We don't need line work. So we're only drawing points. Okay, you can set the precision for your elevation. You can indicate, so this is cool. If you check this, the point, it'll know not to use the point when you do your surface, which is super handy, right? So you could say, like, for your tree code or your overhead utility pole code, you can do that. And then there's all kinds of powerful things here that I have not messed with. But like, I'm pretty sure you can go and like set the rotation on like a street light block based on and part of your point description. Like, there's all kinds of very powerful stuff here that I haven't messed with. This is where you set your symbol. If you want, you can draw a second symbol. I've never needed to do that, but if you want to do it, it's there. And then you can set up your line type here. So very super cool stuff. You can even hatch a closed area if you want and set the hatch and the layer. Like, I haven't done any of that, but like, if you want to like hatch closed concrete line work, you can automatically do that. I mean, there is so much power here. Super, super powerful. So that's how you set up your code library. This is not a small exercise. Like this is going to take somebody, to do this right and to work out the kinks takes a week. It's days of work, but their payoff is in the long term, right? So you're gonna invest some early on. So you can see some of these, we have multiple codes with a number at the end. What that allows you to do is that allows you to run multiple lines at the same time. And so, for example, if you're doing like street topo, you might want to run 2 flow lines at the same time because you're doing cross sections. And so the way it works in Carlson is you run a flow line 1 code and a flow line 2 code. And so it'll run 2 lines at once. You can do up to 9 lines. By the way, if you can run more than 9 lines at one time, you're a rock star. I can't keep track of more than 2 or 3 lines at the same time when I'm in the field, but it'll do up to 9. So that's why they have the multiple codes there. Okay, there are other kinds of things you can do here. So there you go. If you've got Land Desktop or Trimble codes, you can import those. You can set your style of coding. You can code multiple codes and split those. You can stop your line work when you have a gap in your point number. And there's so much stuff here that you can go through. I have just barely touched the tip of the iceberg here. This is the special codes. So this is where you can set up all your line work codes. So you can see we've done that here. You do not have to use all these. You really only need 3 or 4 to do basic line work. So you got your start line, your end line, your start curve, your end curve. But there's all kinds of other things. You can run offset lines. You can close lines. You can join lines to points. You can plug gaps. There's all kinds of stuff. You can jog by distance. There's all kinds of stuff here. Do not hit your crew with this all at once, right? Like, start them with begin line, end line, begin curve, end curve, just that. And then after they've used that for a while, they're going to come to you and be like, it'd be cool if I could just like shoot a line over to another point number. All right, well, then you tell them, hey, we can do that. That's the join point code. Okay. The other thing we do a lot is we go in and we straighten vaults and buildings from the shot points. We square them up. You don't have to do that. They've got a rectangle code. So if your crew uses your rectangle code, you can shoot, you shoot a couple points and it'll automatically square up your vaults and stuff. So there's a lot of things you can do here to save stuff. So that's where you set up your line work. That's about what I wanted to show. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to show on field to finish. that was about, I just wanted to give you guys the flavor of how you can set that up in Carlson. As you can see, there's a ton of power there. By the way, if you're a Carlson customer, they have like a learning library and they've got 2 or 3 videos. They're good videos. The guy talks a little bit in monotone, so you got to have some caffeinated beverages before you watch him, but he walks you through the whole process of how to do field to finish. And I would really like to geek out on this, and I just don't have time anymore. So I'm trying to gently nudge some of my CAD people into taking some of this on, because there's a lot of power here. There's really a lot of power. So you don't need to buy the Chat GPT extension for your CAD software just yet. There's all kinds of stuff here that you're probably not using. So you can do that first. So, all right, you guys have been great. I feel like this is a super boring topic. So are there any, let me stop sharing my screen. Are there any other questions or comments? I know I've been going on about an hour.
You gotta, yeah, no, you're good. There's a few people that want,
Oh, okay.
threw some in
Yep.
the chat. There's a couple that went directly to me.
Oh, okay.
So
Yep. You know what? I'll just send our feature codes to Trent.
Yep. And then I can shoot it out.
And then he can send them out.
The other one, you sent the links to your videos. Can we throw those on the mentoring site? The links to those?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. I just want to make sure before I did that, but
yep.
Okay.
Nope, that's fine. Yeah, so Trent will get you the link to the 2 videos I did for Oregon. They're about an hour and 15 minutes, and you guys can go watch those. They're on YouTube. We ended up having to, I recorded those from our office because like the weekend of the conference, they closed I-5 because of the snow. And so like nobody could get, I forget where it was, but like nobody could get there.
Yeah, I flew in that morning and
did you really?
Portland airport was closed at 11.
Okay.
I'm glad I went south. It was in Salem, so I'm glad I had to go south because
yeah, I think it was getting north was the problem.
Portland was an ice skating rink. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah. So let's see. So that's cool. Yep, we'll send you guys the library. Yep. Martina says, yep, get it set up. The payoff is huge. So Joshua talks a little bit about TBC. So one thing I would let you guys know, and I talk about this in the video from the conferences, may come a point in your career where you have to learn to think like a GIS person. And so when you do the GIS feature code library that Trimble supports, it has a lot more power than field to finish. I think field to finish is great for topo, but when you're going to start, when you start going out to do things like, I think Joshua said he works for utility, and they want to, what happens in some of those situations is you're going to be asked to fill more of an attribute data collection role. In other words, the location becomes less important than the other, or the other attribute data becomes as important as the location data. So like if you're shooting a fire hydrant, they want to know what color is it, what model is it, is it in the sidewalk or out of the sidewalk? They want you to take a picture of it. Okay, you can't do that in Carlson field to finish. It's not elegant. They do support some GIS functionality, but Trimble supports all of that stuff. So you can actually send your crew out with a GIS feature code library, and you can collect. So anyways, I talk about it in the video. I go through for 5 or 10 minutes and explain the difference between the way field to finish is done for survey, which is point focused, and field to finish for GIS, which is feature focused. Yeah. So in survey, you're assigning attribute data to points. In GIS, you're assigning it to points, polygons, or polylines. It's a little bit different. So that was a great comment, Joshua. Thank you.
Yeah, Josh unmuted himself. Go for it.
90% of my work is federally audited, and it all goes into tail end GIS. So on a lot of the pipeline stuff, any given attribute I shoot could have 40 different attributes that are federally required for audits, and it's mind numbing. And yeah, Carlson tries, but I still run all my processing in Carlson field to finish. I still do all my weld maps, everything else in Carlson, even though I have pipeline module for Trimble. It's just, it does a lot more than I really am competent to let it do. So I'm going to stay in the shallow end of the pool.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
very cool. And you know, there's probably not a black and white line to when it makes sense to make the switch, you know, but what I would tell you is if you start working for a client and your data is directly feeding their GIS and you're not just doing topo for an engineer, you maybe should think about making that switch to a more GIS type of feature model. But yeah, super cool, Joshua, that you're doing that. Ryan said he uses attributes to calculate sewer depths. Super cool. Yeah, I didn't know. I've never done that in TBC, but yeah, that's super cool. So, you know what, Joshua? I actually wrote a little, I bet this is about 10 years ago, but we mapped the trunk lines for a small sanitary district here in Central California at a company I used to work at. And I actually went in and hand coded a little like Visual Basic, or I can't remember, Python or Java, a little routine that took the rim shot and then took a text file with all the dip information and automatically calculated all the invert elevation. So it's super cool that you got TBC to do that. That's pretty awesome. So and I don't know, like they were going to have some civil engineer tech like sit at a desk for 2 weeks and like do all that math in a spreadsheet, and like I took a day to code the tool, and in 10 minutes it did all that math. No math mistakes. So yeah,
And think about the hand putting errors that would have been
oh
associated
yeah,
with that, right?
yeah. I mean, it was the trunk line for the whole system, right? So I don't know,
Yeah.
892 manholes. There was something crazy, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's super cool. So
what's your field software? Are you using Carlson data collector as well, or are you using
no, so we're a Trimble shop.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just Carlson for drafting.
And then we do Carlson for drafting. Yeah, we're transitioning. So all three partners we really love Trimble. But we were poor when we started, and Trimble is expensive. So we're slowly rotating out some of our non-Trimble gear and rotating in Trimble gear. So yeah, so we're moving that direction. But we run TBC for everything.
Okay.
Yeah. So Trent will have to have me come back this year, and we can talk about why every surveyor should be looking at their raw data in something like TBC.
Oh heck yeah, I'll have you back for that one.
Because I think that's
when you're ready for that, you let me know.
Yeah, that's an important
that'll be a fun
thing.
One.
So,
Chris threw something in the chat. We run multiple without having specific codes.
Yeah, so I think Trimble will do that. I don't know if Carlson does, but TBC, you do not have to create a separate code for each line you want to run. I think TBC, if you just put the number behind it. Yeah. So if you have like a flow line code FL and you just put the number behind it, I think TBC automatically recognizes that without having to create a specific code. I don't know if Carlson does. I think I had to create multiple codes. So, or is he saying he does that in Carlson? He's saying, he does.
He runs it in Carlson.
All right. So, Chris, you're going to have to teach me how you do that. Yeah, because that would greatly simplify my future code library. Would be a lot shorter that way. So, yeah, I'll have to. Chris, if you remember, you can email me a screenshot or a link to where you hit that toggle. I would check that out for sure. So that's why I like coming to Mentoring Mondays, because I always walk away with a tidbit like that.
We're going to get Chris to teach it next time.
Yeah, Chris is doing a better job for sure. So.
That's awesome. Any more questions? And it's always great stuff. So Landon's passion always comes through. I love it.
All right, Trent, thanks for having me.
Of course, guys. Have a good week, everybody.
All right, bye.
Talk to you next week.